Emotions and pricing. Emotions. You're at the start of your journey in learning about pricing. When it comes to selling, for example, our services online, there are two things that we really worry about. How the client will perceive the quality of what they get, and how the client will perceive the price of what we're selling. So any situation where we feel we're going to be judged by others naturally leads us to panic. So fear gets in the way of pricing. It's normal for you to feel uncomfortable about pricing your products. It's normal for you to feel anxious about pricing your services. As human beings, we have a strong tendency to want to avoid being punished by others. This is a good and normal survival trait. Until very recently, our survival as humans depended on the group that we were with. Ultimately, the reason that you are here, that your ancestors survive, is because they learned to stick together in groups. We use what others are doing all the time as a guide to what we should do. So your ancestors decided that doing what was best for the group was going to be good for them too. You literally exist because your ancestors cooperated with others. But here's the problem. Because your brain is wired to make you worry about what others think of you, that primal fear tends to rise to the surface when we're putting ourselves out there. And when we're selling anything, we are putting ourselves out there. Let's say we're going to play a game. My friends Jane and Ben are with me. I've got a ton of cash and I've decided to let them in on the fun. I put $10 on the table in front of them in $1 bills. I tell Jane that she gets to decide how those $10 are split. So Jane can decide that they each get $5, or she can get to keep $9 and only give Ben $1. The flip side of this is that Ben can choose to accept or reject her offer. So here's the twist. If Ben rejects the offer, neither of them gets to keep any money. It's a good, fun, cruel game. Now here's what's interesting. Most of us would reject a $1 offer, more because we have something called a pro-social behaviour. That is, we take the cost of punishing, in this case $1, for the benefit of the group. We'll pay to have you suffer, in other words. Your average psychopath, however, is more likely to take a measly $1 because they're less pro-social than the rest of us, and to take the cash instead of paying it to punish the other person. You could say that your average psychopath is actually more rational than the rest of us. But in fact, there are actually two types of psychopath. So if you become a psychopath because of the way that you were raised, you're more likely to snap up the $1. But psychopaths who are pure-born psychopaths are even more likely than non-psychopaths to reject a poor deal. Sneaky and worrying. And I don't know about you, but I reckon the genes for not annoying a hardcore psychopath are the ones you only get to keep to make a new generation by not annoying a hardcore psychopath. So treating others fairly is a very good survival trait. Can you see that if you're afraid of annoying or angering people with your prices, it comes from a strong need to please the group and not to be punished for making an unfair offer? Most of us have a strong desire to punish people when we feel they are being greedy or unfair, so we're holding that feeling in mind when we go to set our prices. Let's go back to our dollar splitting game. The most likely outcome of this game is that when the split is relatively even and Jane keeps $6 or $7, Ben is likely to accept the offer. But if Jane tries to keep $9 or even $8, Ben is likely to reject the offer, feeling it's unfair, even when it costs him money. This is called the ultimatum game, and it's an experiment that's been done many times. It shows how people behave when they feel that something is unfair. And because it's built into us as a group animal, that punishment or rejection of the offer is what we're trying to deal with when we're pricing our own offers. But what matters in the end is not the actual price that you charge, but that your customer perceives your offer to be fair. Ultimately, you're trying to find a price which makes your customer feel it's a good deal for them. This course draws from experiments like the dollar splitting game, which come from the realms of psychology and behavioural science. We use real-life experiments throughout this course to show you how we know these things about human nature. But this certainly isn't a science course, so we'll use them lightly. You'll find references to the experiments we mention in the resources section, and so if you want to delve deeper when you come to the end of the course, you know where to look. This is a pricing course about how humans really behave. As I've already pointed out, human beings aren't logical, they aren't rational, and they do things that surprise us. When you worry about being punished for being unfair, for your prices being too high, it's your instinctive understanding of what happens when you stray away from the group or do something that the group considers to be wrong. Your fears are rational because people are irrational. The guidance you'll find in this course covers two areas. 1, using science to price and position your products, and 2, how to meet your customers' emotional needs when positioning your products so that they feel that they are getting a fair deal. And when I say emotional, I'm not talking about offering them hugs. I mean, hugs are nice, but we're trying to make a living here. Some of what we'll cover on the course will feel counterintuitive. You may feel like some of the advice runs counter to other advice you might have received in the past. Sometimes that will be because a lot of the advice you've heard in the past is based on people being rational. Traditionally, a lot of the advice around pricing is based on pure logic. For example, if you were pricing up retail goods, you might consider how much it costs you to make them, and times that by 2. That may seem perfectly sensible until I point out to you that there are people who spend $5,000 on a handbag, or even $500, or never more than $50 on a handbag. Yes, the $5,000 handbag is likely to be made of better stuff than the $50 one. But is it $4,950 better than a $50 handbag? No, of course it isn't. The reason that people pay a huge amount of money for something as insanely simple as a handbag comes down to emotion. Someone who buys a $5,000 handbag is saying something about themselves. They want people to perceive them in a certain way. They're saying they can afford to blow resources on a handbag. They're saying they can afford it. They're saying they follow high fashion. They might tell themselves the lie that a $5,000 handbag will last 10 times as long as a $500 handbag, or 100 times as long as a $50 one. But what this really comes down to is that people buy in order to say something about themselves. Of course they do. Does a middle-aged, fat white man with a beard who wears white t-shirts and leather buy a Harley Davidson so that he can ride around with other fat white men in leather? No. He buys it to say that he's got an adventurous spirit, that he's not really an accountant. Think about it like this. How much you're prepared to pay for a taxi journey is going to differ depending on how you feel. Don't believe me? Let's say it's 5 p.m. and you're well-rested, happy. It's a beautiful sunny day and you are due at client drinks, and getting there involves a train and a lot of walking. But it's a beautiful day for a stroll and you've got comfy shoes on. Public transport is $5 and a taxi is $30. Or you're tired, hungry, maybe hungover, your shoes hurt your feet, you've come out of a long sweaty day of work. It's pouring with rain and you have no umbrella. You can get public transport, which is going to take you an hour, and you're going to have to walk for most of it. Or you can get a taxi that will get you there in 15 minutes without you getting wet and give you enough time to eat something before you enter. Now, do you feel like spending $30 more? That's your emotions at play. Now think about your clients. If your client needs help and emotionally they're standing on the metaphorical street in the rain and you are that magical taxi cab, they will pay you to solve their pain. Solve the pain and their dollars are yours. Nice one. Finally, I want you to know this. People who've experienced a particular type of brain damage, which is to the fear response part of your brain called the amygdala, find it harder to make decisions. We literally need our emotions to help us make decisions. As you go through the course, bear that in mind, because much of what I'll teach you is about taking the pain away from paying and about making it painless for your customers to give you money and harnessing human emotions to boost your profit. We literally need our emotions to help us make decisions, and you can use that to help you price.